there was a power gap. And the Jews took that opportunity to arrest James and a number of his followers and to try him publicly. And all of this is recounted in Eusebius. And as he's tried publicly, he's brought to the pinnacle of the temple, and they tell him, renounce Christ. Do not believe in him. We know you are a just man, it says in Eusebius. Even the Jerusalem leaders, they recognize he's James the Just.
He's got a great character.
Great character, great reputation. He had been praying so much that he developed the nickname Camel's Knees, because his knees were so calloused, and so he was on his knees so much praying that he got the nickname Camel Knees, James the Just. So like that's the kind of guy that he is.
Yeah, he's legit.
He's legit. He's standing up on the pinnacle of the temple, and they call out to him, denounce Christ, his brother. And he says, no, I refuse to denounce Christ. And so they shove him off the pinnacle of the temple. He lands, his body's broken, but he's still alive. And so they come down and begin to stone him. But before they start stoning him, he gets back on his camel knees and prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Wow.
And then he's stoned and clubbed and dies and buried right there next to the temple.
Dude, what a legend.
Legend.
Yeah.
Legend. So he, right now...
This is his humble beginning.
This is his humble beginning. He goes on to be this incredible man of faith, pillar of the early church, author of the book of James, part of the New Testament. Like, he is the guy, and yet he started in disbelief. And yet the Lord met him, changed him, and he turned into that kind of individual.
What a reversal.
What a reversal.
Welcome back to the Bible podcast. Stephen and I are excited to start chapter 7 of the book of John. And today we're going to be reading verses 1 through 24. So let's get right into it. Verse 1. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Okay, now right off the bat, Stephen, after this, for our Applegate listeners, is that meta-tauta?
Oh, it is.
Okay, a little inside joke for our fellow Applegaters, all right?
Yep.
Okay, he wouldn't go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's a callback to John chapter 5. And John chapter 5, the story that happens there is going to resurface again in John chapter 7. And in John 5, Jesus performed the miracle at the pool of Bethesda, healing a man who had been lame for 38 years. But he did that healing on the Sabbath. And right in the middle of John chapter 5, it says that the Jews were seeking to kill him because he did the miracle on the Sabbath. And so that is the context that's going to help explain or help us to understand what is going on in John chapter 7.
Okay, got it. Pick it up in verse 2.
So in verse 2, it says, Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. So his brothers said to him, Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples also may see the works you are doing. For no one works in secret if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world, for not even his brothers believed in him.
Oh man, I have a lot of questions. Okay, so first off, what's the Feast of Booths?
Yeah, so the Feast of Booths, it would happen in the fall. It's a 7-day long feast that commemorated the provision of God through the wilderness as the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. And how they would celebrate this is everyone would come to Jerusalem, all the Jewish people would come to Jerusalem, and they would essentially set up temporary structures, little lean-tos that were made out of like leaves and branches and things, and make these little huts all around, or these little booths is what they were. And they would live in those as a remembrance to when they were wandering around the wilderness, only living in little lean-tos and tent-like structures. And so that was this week-long camping trip. But then on the 8th day, there would be a celebration day, a holy day, a celebration day that would be a festival that would kind of finish off this feast, this celebration. And so it would happen in the fall, commemorate that time in Israel's history. And so whenever John mentions different time indicators like this, or feasts or things, he's meaning for us to remember that context for this story. And all through John 7 and 8, we're going to see the Feast of Booths become the subtext for Jesus's working and his ministry in Jerusalem.
Okay, sweet. And then you have Jesus's brothers, and they're like, "Hey, we're going up. You should go." Right?
Yep. Yeah. And they basically take a mocking stance to their brother.
Yeah,
because,
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. They're like, "Hey, if you're wanting to gain a bunch of followers, why don't you go down to Jerusalem and show off?" And they may have realized that what happened in just John chapter 6, at the end, it started with 5,000 followers, and at the end,
right,
basically 11. Like he got to the 12,
right,
but one's going to betray him. And so maybe they're seeing that his ministry is starting to wane and not have as much momentum behind it. And so they're like, "Oh, if you're such a big hotshot, go down to the big city and go perform your miracles there and try to gain more followers again," because they didn't believe in him.
Right.
They didn't actually believe that he was the Son of God.
His own brothers.
His own brothers. And what's ironic is oftentimes what John uses is irony in his writing. And what they say is, go down to Jerusalem and perform a miracle there, or perform a work there, that you may show yourself to the world. And what is Jesus going to do in Jerusalem?
He's going to show himself to the world.
He's going to show himself to the world.
Right.
So they're kind of mocking him here.
Right.
In disbelief.
But what they challenge him to do, he does.
He actually ends up doing.
Yeah.
And so it actually demonstrates what Jesus will do on the cross in his death, burial, and resurrection, is show himself to the world.
Right.
But what's interesting, so these brothers, there's a few named in the New Testament, and at this point they do not believe, but the brothers of Jesus eventually will come to faith in Jesus. Yeah. And the brothers, two of them, even write books of the Bible.
James.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jude.
Yep.
James and Jude.
Yeah.
They are both brothers of Jesus, and they would go on to write those books. And so even though right now they don't believe in Jesus, eventually they're going to come to saving faith in their own brother.
So you think this is a quote of James or Jude, potentially?
Potentially.
Did he have more brothers?
He did have two more listed in the Gospel of Matthew as well.
Okay.
But those were the only two that actually wrote Scripture, and they both have fascinating stories after they wrote their epistles and how their lives went after the resurrection, where Jesus actually showed up after he resurrected specifically to one of his brothers. It says in 1 Corinthians 15. And so he gives this direct revelation, probably James. When he shows up to James, he reveals himself directly, personally. James realizes, I was wrong. All right. You rose from the dead. You are the Son of God. And he goes on to become a pillar of the Jerusalem church. So he stays in Jerusalem. He is a pillar, a key figure in the administration of that church. And he writes the first epistle that maybe was ever written.
Oh, really?
James is one of the earliest. So there's a argument of what you could say is the earliest. It could be James. It could be Galatians. It could be another one too. But James is one of the earliest for sure.
Right.
And so he writes, you could say, the first book of the New Testament.
Wow.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so he's this pillar of the early church. But then how his life goes is he's there, and right around AD 62, 63, you can read about in the book of Acts, the main antagonists to the church at the very beginning times of the church were the Jewish authorities, just like we see in the Gospels.
Yeah.
And so James, ministering in Jerusalem to Jewish people, he got a lot of antagonism. He built up a lot of enemies.
Right.
And the local Roman leader's name was Festus, which you can read about in the book of Acts. He was the one who helped try Paul and all of those things like that. Yeah. But he died. And so Rome was sending a new local magistrate to Jerusalem to take up Festus's place. But in the in-between time, there was a power gap.
Right.
And the Jews took that opportunity to arrest James and a number of his followers and to try him publicly. And all of this is recounted in Eusebius if someone wants to go read it later. And as he's tried publicly, he's brought to the pinnacle of the temple, and they tell him, renounce Christ. Do not believe in him. We know you are a just man, it says in Eusebius. Even the Jerusalem leaders, they recognize he's James the Just.
He's got a great character.
Great character, great reputation. He had been praying so much that he developed the nickname Camel's Knees, because his knees were so calloused, and so he was on his knees so much praying that he got the nickname Camel Knees, James the Just. So like that's the kind of guy that he is.
Yeah, he's legit.
He's legit. He's standing up on the pinnacle of the temple, and they call out to him, denounce Christ, his brother. And he says, no, I refuse to denounce Christ. And so they shove him off the pinnacle of the temple. He lands, his body's broken, but he's still alive. And so they come down and begin to stone him. But before they start stoning him, he gets back on his camel knees and prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Wow.
And then he's stoned and clubbed and dies and buried right there next to the temple.
Dude, what a legend.
Legend.
Yeah.
Legend. So he, right now...
This is his humble beginning.
This is his humble beginning. He goes on to be this incredible man of faith, pillar of the early church, author of the book of James, part of the New Testament. Like, he is the guy, and yet he started in disbelief. And yet the Lord met him, changed him, and he turned into that kind of individual.
What a reversal.
What a reversal.
Yeah.
But not only that, there's also Jude, like we mentioned. And you and I have an interesting connection with Jude, actually. I don't know if you remember this. But Jude, so he, after he converted to Christianity and recognized that his brother was truly the Son of God, he went out with probably Simon the Zealot to go evangelize Syria. And on that missions trip, he also was martyred for his faith. So the two brothers of Jesus that we have, who have written the New Testament, they both were martyred for their faith in their brother. Right. And then at some point along the way, he is commemorated, sainthood and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know how it happened. I don't know if it's real, honestly. I'm a little skeptical of it. But you want to tell the story of what happened?
Yeah. Well, so you're talking about our trip down to the Catholic Church down here.
I am,
okay.
Yeah.
So apparently the arm bone of St. Jude is on a tour through the Catholic Church's program, and it came to Franklin. And we saw this line out the door into the Catholic Church downtown in Franklin, and we were like, what's going on? So, like sheep, we just got in line. We had no idea what was
what was
coming. I was like, pull over, Steven. We got to get in that line. So we stood there, and then we kind of like, subtly asking around, like, so what are we waiting for? And people around us were like, you haven't heard? This is the arm bone of St. Jude. Like, it's here. And so we went in, weaved around, saw it and everything. Is there anything specific you want me to mention?
Well, it's interesting because we learned a lot about what relics are.
Yeah.
During that time, because that
as
is
Protestant boys,
we're
not big on relics.
No idea. Very educational experience for us, and turns out I don't like relics.
Do you want me to tell?
Go for it. Yeah, tell the whole thoughts.
So we get in there.
We're already here.
There's a big donation bin right when you come in, and then a little bit beyond that is another donation bin, and then you weave around, there's another donation bin, and then you get up to the front, there's another donation bin, and there's tables full of trinkets like crosses and things that you can buy, and if you press them to the glass case that is housing the arm bone of St. Jude, the healing power from St. Jude is supposed to transfer to that item. So that's why you see a lot of Catholics, I think, wearing, maybe like crucifixes and things like that. I think a lot of them may have done that sort of thing. And so they're going with St. Jude's power out of the church. It felt to us a lot like Like empty promises, maybe?
It's slightly pagan. No, it's the relic system is that there's like tier 1 relics, tier 2 relics, and tier 3 relics, and like they have this whole system in the Catholic Church where it's based on, they say, the book of Acts, where the sweatbands of Paul healed people.
Right.
And so they say if something has this connection to the original apostles, it has healing powers. And so the arm bone of St. Jude then has, therefore, this healing power that you can get access to in order to bring to a sick relative to maybe have them be healed. And that, to me, is just such a miscarriage of the biblical text in Acts, and also a manipulation of vulnerable people.
Right.
Is really what we both felt like. And so we were very concerned as we just stood there and watched these people who were clearly needing desperately some kind of miracle, and they were using this system that was designed to exploit them for money.
Yeah.
To try and get that miracle.
I saw people with cancer. I saw people in wheelchairs. Like this was a crowd that was desperate, coming to ask God for healing, but in a way that they have to pay for, and the results are not guaranteed, and and pretty shoddy Bible work to get there.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So it was definitely an eye-opening thing for us to see that, and I have no idea if that bone is the arm bone of St. Jude. I tried to look up the history of it, and it's shrouded in mystery. So I don't know where that could have been. There were thousands of relics all throughout the European continent during the Middle Ages. In Luther's hometown, you could go to his local cathedral, and they had a reliquary that had a bunch of relics in it, and you could find a twig from the burning bush from Exodus. You could find a number of different relics that clearly were fraudulent, and that is an unfortunate truth that has been consistent throughout the Catholic Church's usage.
Didn't I hear
relics.
that there was like so many pieces of the cross itself that like it was like a ridiculous amount of wood?
Oh yeah, you could build a boat with it. The amount of shards of wood. I think there was maybe even like a thorn from the crown of thorns potentially there.
So there's
too.
a lot of abuse in the system.
A lot of abuse in the system.
That's just clear abuse.
Yeah, in other words, yeah.
So don't get duped by that. And also remember that you can go directly to Christ and ask for healing. Mm-hmm. He's got the power to do it. If he wants to do it, he'll do it. Mm-hmm. Go right to him in faith and ask. And then in faith, if your prayers aren't answered, go away trusting God. And we don't need relics. We don't need anyone between us and God.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right.
And God in his grace knows exactly the kind of circumstances that need to come about for his own glory and our good. And so we can come to him in faith saying, Lord, this is what I need. Present myself to you. Have your way in me. And I pray that you would accomplish your purpose in this. And we do pray for healing and all of those things.
Yeah.
And so
I did not know we were going to go here today.
Surprise. I thought, his brothers are mentioned. It'll be interesting.
This is a story that, it really did impact us. When we showed up that day and we saw the clear, taking advantage of people in need.
Yeah.
And it was actually really disheartening. So,
okay.
I think we're in verse 6.
Yeah, verse 6.
All right. Jesus said to them, "My time is not yet come, but your time is always here." Okay, I got a question about that. What is he talking about? That his time hasn't come, but their time is always here.
Yes. So he is talking about how basically they can go down to Jerusalem whenever they want because no one's trying to kill them. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to go down to Jerusalem, you can do that. There's no problems with that. Me, on the other hand, I have people out to kill me. So I have to time this right. And ultimately, everything that Christ does is according to the Father's will.
Right.
So he's not going to be told what to do by his brothers or his family. even though this is a very familially strong culture, he's prioritizing his relationship with the Father, God himself, more than anything else.
Right.
And so he's going on his own timetable is essentially what he's saying.
Right.
And so in verse 7, it says, the world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it, that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I'm not going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come. And so he says, you guys are a part of the world. You have no fear to go down there because there's nothing.
The world loves you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The world hates me because I call the deeds evil. So I need to time this right according to the Father's plan. And so he's not saying, I'm not going to go up to the feast ever or at all, because we're going to see he is going to go up to the feast.
Right.
Instead, he's saying, I'm going about it at my time according to my Father's business, not according to anything else.
Right. So he's saying, I'm not going up right now.
Yeah.
So then in verse 9, it says, after saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after his brothers had gone up to the feast, then he also went up, not publicly, but in private.
Yes. Yeah. So he goes up and he decides to go to Jerusalem, going to go celebrate the Feast of Booths. Again, he fulfills the Old Testament. So he not only it says that he has come to fulfill the law, not to abolish the law. And so that means he perfectly accomplished everything that the law requires. So he goes and he fulfills the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Booths. He actually does the things.
So in keeping with the laws and traditions, he's right in line.
Exactly. And so it says in verse 11, though, in verse 10, it says he went up in private. And so he's a little undercover right now.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. And everyone, the rumors start flying. So it says in verse 11, it says, the Jews were looking for him at the feast and saying, where is he? And there was much muttering about him among the people, while some said, he is a good man. Others said, no, he is leading the people astray. Yet for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him.
The whispers are just going everywhere.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jesus has those little glasses and the little mustache nose.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's just like, he's hearing it.
Yeah.
He knew.
He knows. He just knows what's going on. Yep, he is undercover.
Right.
All of the whispers start spreading. There's a division among the people of everyone trying to figure out what's going on.
He's effectively hijacked the Feast of Booths.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
They're thinking about Jesus.
Yeah. Exactly. And so in verse 14, it says, about the middle of the feast, remember, this feast is essentially 8 days long. And so at the middle of the feast, Jesus went up into the temple and began teaching. So the great reveal. Halfway through, he shows up in the temple, begins teaching. And this prompts a conversation that we're going to look at here in a second. It says in verse 15, the Jews therefore marveled, how is it that this man has learning when he has never studied?
Okay, what does it mean that they're marveling about him not being learned and he's up there teaching? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so at this time, in order to be a effective teacher, oftentimes you would go to different schools and learn under different rabbis. And the way in which you would teach was you would teach based on precedent. In other words, like in our judicial system, oftentimes the legal system...
This was ruled this way in the past, so that's how we got to rule it in the future.
Exactly. And so that's how people would teach at the time, where they would say, Rabbi Hillel or Rabbi Gamaliel or Rabbi whoever says this about this passage, and I agree with him on this, and I agree with this rabbi on this, and they would constantly be referencing and quoting back to precedent in the Jewish tradition as they explained the scriptures or as they talked about different current issues of the day.
Right.
So Jesus showing up, he does not refer to precedent. In his teachings, you never hear him say, so-and-so says whatever. And so I agree with that. Yeah. Right? He says, truly, truly, I say to you.
Right.
That's pretty different. That's very different than, like, he doesn't need to cite his sources, like he is the source.
Right.
Like, I'm saying this right now.
Right.
On my own authority. And they're kind of blown away by this. They're like, how is he able to talk? He's not studied. He's not quoting all of these other schools of thought or rabbis. He's just teaching.
Yeah, you can hear the jaws dropping in this passage, especially because they got there thinking about Jesus, and they're like, all right, I got to see what happens with this Jesus guy when I get to this Feast of Booths. And then, time goes on and they're like, is he not here? Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
And then finally, I give up. I guess he's not coming. And then he gets up and he says, truly, truly, I say to you. And they're just like,
There he is.
stunned.
Yeah, literally stunned. And so, verse 16, Jesus knows what's going on in the hearts of men, and he hears what's happening, and he says, so Jesus answered them, my teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. So even though he is speaking without authority, that authority is not unfounded. It's from the one who sent him, which is the Father.
He's like, I got the ultimate precedent.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And I am united with him in everything. So we are unified. Everything I'm teaching, he has sent me to teach. It's straight from God.
You can take it to the bank.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then in verse 17, he then gives basically a test in order to determine the source of Jesus' teachings or the veracity of Jesus' teaching. He says, if anyone's will is to do God's will, he will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I'm speaking of my own authority. So what do you think that means?
Yeah. So is he saying, like, if you do God's will, then you'll find out that these things are true?
Mm-hmm. Basically, if you put up front, commit, and be like, yes, I'm going to believe.
Go all in.
I'm going to go all in. I'm going to follow. I'm going to obey. If I put myself on the line to say, yeah, I'm going to step out in this, then you'll see, yeah,
These
my
things are
teaching is from
trustworthy.
God.
Yeah.
These things are trustworthy.
Doesn't this go back to something Jesus said, like in the first couple chapters? What did he tell his disciples?
Yeah, so he tells them to come and see. So when they're kind of confused about things and they're like, hey, where are you staying? He says,
Right.
Come and see.
It's the same thing.
Same thing here.
Right.
Here he's saying, come, listen, obey, decide to follow, believe in me, and then you will see, wow, this is truly of God. This is truly of divine nature. And so the truths that Jesus teaches are kind of like what we said then. They're less about sitting in a classroom and taking notes on mathematics. Instead, it's a little bit more like riding a bike, where by doing the thing, that's how you learn the thing. And you realize, oh, this is how you ride a bike. This is true. This is right, or whatever. Like you can learn all you want about riding a bike in a classroom setting, but you really got until you get on the seat and start pedaling,
right,
you're not going to really see how true it actually is.
So is this a word for people today too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking about following Jesus, if you start doing it, it's probably going to come alive.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Go to church, read your Bible, start praying, put yourself in the position to obey Christ, and you'll see, wow, this is of divine origin.
Start by saying, okay, I believe, help my unbelief. Mm-hmm. And then walk in what God calls us to do, and then it'll all come alive.
Exactly.
Okay.
So in verse 18, it says, the one who speaks on his own authority seeks his own glory. But the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and in him there is no falsehood. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet none of you keeps the law. Why do you seek to kill me?
Okay, so Jesus is distinguishes himself from the Pharisees in these verses.
Yes, yeah. So he's distinguishing himself.
You guys are seeking your glory. I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he shows the relationship between precedent here that is so familiar with them. That they say that they are representing Moses and that they follow Moses effectively. Yet, what they're actually doing is disobeying Moses because they're seeking to kill an innocent man.
Right.
Moses in the law says, do not kill.
Right.
Do not murder. And they're trying to murder.
And ironically, Jesus is the only innocent one there.
Exactly. The only innocent one. So their claim to validity is undermined by the fact that they are going against who they claim to represent. They claim to represent Moses, and yet they're not following Moses. And they're actually going after their own glory, where it says that they, in other places, that they loved the applause of men. In other words, they loved their own glory.
Yeah.
Jesus directly contradicts this and parallels this and mirrors this, gives the opposite representation of this, where he is perfectly in a line with the Father's will whom he is representing. and not going after his own glory, but the glory of the Father who sent him.
Right.
And is actually fulfilling the Father's mission, where he always does the Father's will. And so you have, on the one hand, the Pharisees not doing that which they say they are doing. They're not following Moses, who they claim to represent, and they're seeking their own glory. Jesus, he does do what the Father says. He is accurately representing him and ultimately going after the Father's glory.
Right. And you can just hear how angry they are when they respond with this. The crowd answered, "You have a demon. Who is seeking to kill you?" Jesus answered them, "I did one work, and you marveled at it. Moses gave you circumcision, not that it is from Moses, but from the fathers, and you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If on the Sabbath a man receives circumcision so that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because on the Sabbath I made a man's whole body well? Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment." So they're right off the bat like, this man's got to be demon possessed, like, because probably inside they're like, we were trying to kill him.
Like, that's exactly what we were trying to do.
How did you even know that?
Yeah. And so essentially, so the crowd is like, who's trying to kill you? What's going on? And Jesus knows exactly what's going on. The Jews are trying to kill him. And he harkens back to the story in John chapter 5 of the healing at the pool of Bethesda on the Sabbath day, like we started at the
He's
beginning.
like, I even know why you're trying to kill me.
Exactly. I even know why. And that probably would have been like a year previously, maybe 8 months previously.
Yeah, because I was
going to
say, this is in the fall, and that other miracle was before harvest, right? Or I mean, before...
right after planting Pentecost, right after. So, yeah, maybe like 6 months, 8 months, something like that.
Okay.
And so not that long ago. And so he knows exactly what's going on. And he talks again about Sabbath. And he puts them in kind of a quandary, essentially. And the quandary is, in order to fulfill the Abrahamic covenant, every single male child needed to be circumcised on the 8th day. But what if that 8th day fell on the Sabbath?
Which law do I follow?
What do you do? And he says that they will circumcise the child on the Sabbath day in order to fulfill the Abrahamic covenant. And he even insinuates that they're right to do so, that's the right call. Man was not made for the Sabbath. Sabbath was made for man.
Right.
In other words, it was meant to promote human flourishing. And inclusion into the Abrahamic covenant is part of the key thing that God has blessed his people with.
Right. Nothing flourishes you more than being brought into God's family.
Exactly.
Right.
And so this is in full alignment with the intention of the Sabbath, that they're meant to be included into the people of God and experience the blessing of Abraham and all of those things that come along with it. And in fact, there's probably no better day to be included into Abraham's family than to do it on the day of rest, which is what the people of Abraham, the people of faith, are meant to experience, is Sabbath rest. That was a privilege that the Jewish people received.
Right.
And so there's no better day, honestly, on some level to do it.
Right. Sabbath is just this gift from God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then they get to enter into the covenant on that day of gift. And so Jesus says, in the same way, he then parallels circumcision with the healing.
Right.
He says, just as you circumcise, so I have made someone's body completely whole. I have rescued someone on the Sabbath day, bringing them into that Sabbath rest just the same way.
Right. The irony is like they're taking away a small part of a person's body.
Yeah.
And then Jesus is like, no, I just made this body whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that if you're going to take away some on the Sabbath, can't I make one completely whole on the Sabbath?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're bringing someone into the people of God on the Sabbath day in this sense, why can't I also bring someone into the wholeness of everything that they were meant to be as a part of the people of God on the Sabbath? It's not contradictory. And so Jesus isn't saying, I kind of fulfill both laws or a little bit. It's no, I'm actually upholding the true sense of both laws as the one who never broke the law, and also as the one who fulfills the law, in the sense that what Jesus' mission is to do on this earth is to bring about true Sabbath and true wholeness, true inclusion into the people of God. Where now it says in Galatians that we as Christians, we are descendants of Abraham, the father of faith. where we are included into the family of God. And the family of God in Hebrews chapter 4 is characterized by rest. That Jesus has done the work for us so that way we can abide, rest, and have peace with God because he's done the work for us. And so he is paralleling all of these things together simultaneously to vindicate his actions as being totally lawful and also demonstrating his mission in the world, which is to bring rest, wholeness, and forgiveness because he will die on the cross and he will be buried, rise again for our forgiveness so we can receive the blessing of being involved in the family of God, the blessing of Abraham, simply by grace through faith, because we have nothing to offer. We are sinners and we need his grace. And so his mission here is to bring about that kind of salvation. That's what he's come to do.
I love it. I love it. So he's the ultimate rest because he's accomplished all the work on our behalf. Mm-hmm. And through faith, we become sons of God. And that song now makes sense. Father Abraham had many sons, and I am one of them, and so are you.
Yeah. We're all a part of the family of God and
Right.
descendants of the father of
Abraham
faith.
is our father.
Yeah. Abraham is
It's
our
beautiful.
father. Yeah.
Should we wrap it up there?
I think we should wrap it up there.
The grass withers,
The flower fades.
but the word of the Lord endures forever.
Amen.
Amen.